All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining me for another episode of Ink and Chat. Tonight, I am joined by Mr. Gerald Jackson. Good evening, Mr. Jackson. How are you?
Hello, hello, hello. First and foremost, I always got to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I know that it could be somebody who didn't know about me now get to know
Yes.
because of you and because of your platform. So I have to thank you for just acknowledging, people and looking for different authors. So thank you. I'm humbled.
Yes, most definitely. It is a pleasure. And so, Mr. Jackson grew up in Philadelphia, where he received his education. Um, He's received education in the public and Catholic school systems. Then he joined the National Guard, the Army National Guard, where he served two tours and concurrently attended Millersville University. And in 2012, he wrote his first book titled A Father's Message to remind children they are never alone. And then last year, February 2001, he published his second book titled A Father's Love, filled with words of endearment and guidance throughout a child's journey.
Mm.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. So let's just jump into it. Tell us
Okay.
about your work, your creative works of art.
And so, as you just heard, two-time published author is an honor. I would like to say for me, how it all began. I didn't choose to be an author. I feel like the author chose me. I didn't wake up and be like, hey, I want to be an author one day. I knew this was my path. But I realized even throughout my life and developing who I am, I was always a person who wanted to give inspiration, encouraging words, always seen the good, even no matter how bad or dark the situation been. And so I think that kind of led me to just the whole writing, even with the two books, A Father's
Yes.
Message and A Father's Love.
Yes. And so tell us, so I know it's a little more of that story. So a father's
Absolutely,
love.
absolutely.
So just tell us a little bit more about how that came about. So I'm assuming that you are a father and
Yes,
that
yes,
you are writing these stories are really, probably a little bit more of probably some of you from a child's perspective, but also
absolutely.
now you're talking to your own children or your own child. So give us a little bit more of that backstory.
So I think really, yeah. So to understand the story of where these books stem from, I think it's kind of as a it started from the void in my life.
Okay.
And so I grew up in a single parent home. I did My father wasn't there. I knew my father, but he was battling with an addiction. And with any addiction, sometimes that becomes the priority in that
Yes.
in that moment. And so my dad, while he was struggling with his addiction, is still now what happens to the kids, right? What happens to that boy while he's doing his thing? It was a void that was just weighing so heavy on me. And it got to a point where it really took a toll on me, and it took a toll on me, and I don't know why it hit me as much or weighed so heavy on me because in my neighborhood, grew up in West Philadelphia, majority of the kids was also in single parent homes as well. So it wasn't like I felt like I was had something different or I was missing something that they didn't have either. But for some reason, it wouldn't let go. I couldn't shake it off, and in that moment of just battling with this void, range of emotions was going angry, sad, frustrated. Sometimes, unfortunately, the person that's in the home got the wrath, right? You
Yes.
don't realize it, and I look back and I tell my mom like, oh man, I apologize for all the anger that I just kind of just put on your lap and you had to deal with. But sometimes in that moment, in that lesson, sometimes we can focus on what I focused on so much what I didn't have instead of looking around and seeing what I had. And my mom was there, but I didn't appreciate what I had right in front of me the whole time. And so I guess as time went on, I guess it was really frustrating. I had those praying grandmothers that always saying
Yes.
it's gonna work itself out. Always had the Bible, and I guess in a moment where I just felt like I was at a end, and I said, God, if you real, I need you now. I need you now more than anything. And my I guess what I would call a God experience. He said, all this time you looking for a physical father, you have a spiritual father that never left you, will never leave you nor forsake you. And so, um, to me, things didn't change overnight, but that night something did change. And what changed for me, I realized that I wasn't alone. I realized that I had somebody with me all this time. I just didn't see it. My eyes wasn't open. And
Yeah.
once I realized that God was there and he kind of replayed events where I was on the steps, like crying for my daddy. It's like I was sitting right next to you, and so it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Even at my track meets or my swim meets, I was on the swim team too. People don't think that when they see me, the black person, they like, "Oh, you was on the swim." I was on the swim team, but at the track meet, just always looking in the crowd, wondering what it felt like for that parent to be there and
Yes.
singing now those words, "Good job, son," or "I'm proud of you." I didn't care about what the mom said. I was
Right.
yearning. I wanted a father to be able to kind of give me that approval, and I didn't have that. And so those are things that I kind of was wrestling with. And so once I felt like I realized that he was there, it gave me what I need to keep going. But then the roles reversed when I became that father. All the
Right.
emotions, once I became a father, my first child, the emotions came back, and I now was like, oh no, would I even know how to be a father? Right? I didn't think I would be a good father because I didn't have the best example at that time.
Right.
And then I just remember an exercise. If you had to write to your younger self, what would you tell them? And so because I realized I found God, I ended up going into the military. And the military gave me the confidence to start believing myself to start school. I started writing to my younger self, and I said, you know what? It's going to be okay, despite of what your situation, how it started, is going to, it doesn't have to end that way. And so just by putting one foot in front of the other, and so I was just writing to myself, and so
Wow.
not realizing that the author was created, but in me writing to myself, saying everything is going to be okay, giving myself encouraging messages, as if I was talking to myself, using it as a therapeutic, using it as a form to just release to
Yeah.
release my pain on a paper. And when I read the message, I said, "Ooh, this is good." I said, "This is
Yeah.
real good." I said, "This is a message not only can help me, but can help any child that may have grew up in a single parent home, any child who may have felt that they are alone, any
Oh,
child."
oh, you being rude. It's my grandson. You want to say
No, it's
hi?
all right. I love it. I love it. That's motivation. What's
Hello.
up? Hey, I love it. I love it because I get the opportunity to be able. I love the youth. They're our future, next generation, right? But it made me realize that this message is so beneficial. It helped me, and it felt as I was writing, I really felt it was a form of release. Like everything that I was weighed down, it actually in that moment it released from it's off of me, and now it was on the paper. And
Yes.
so once I realized that I was able to let it go, it was a message worth sharing. And so
Yeah.
that's where a father's message came from. And so just give a little extra out of a father's message. I don't know. I don't want to get too, I know I can get long winded. So I don't want to go ahead
That's
and
okay. But and it's so good to hear the backstory,
yeah.
because what we as African American authors are doing right now, we are writing those stories that we didn't get to see as children growing up.
Hmm.
So, we got the Caucasian version of stories, but it was
Hmm.
a lot of animals, things that, like imaginary stuff. And that's okay because we needed that.
Yes.
But at the same time, I think that what we're doing now, we are writing stories that our children can actually relate to. Things that we actually experienced as children that we know that they're also experiencing as well as children. And so I think that it's so important that you share that story because it's so many um, what single parent homes,
Absolutely.
and it's a lot of that because I grew up in a single parent home, and just not be, and I had other reasons why my father wasn't there because he got shot. But it's different to when you think about what we see now versus what we had when we were growing up. And so
Mm.
as a single parent home, the things that we struggled with as in a single parent home is totally different than what these kids are experiencing now. They live in a
Absolutely.
luxury life in these single parent homes.
Let's
We were really our parents were
listen.
struggling. Don't get me wrong, some of the parents today are struggling, but it looks a whole lot more like glitz and glam compared to what we had in our single parent home. So
And I know and even when you're younger, you don't even realize because your parents make the best out of the situation
Yes.
until you get your own. You realize, wow. Um, and I'm the me and my brother. My mom had had two kids, and so
Mhm.
I was always the little one. For I was always the little guy. I'm the short one. My brother now he's 6'3". I'm 5'5", right? And so we had to sleep on twin beds together in a small room. I just remember because it was my grandmom and one room my mom at times. And then when my great aunt she was there, and so we didn't even take her room until she passed away. And so we was with and grandma. It was just so many different things where, um, and TV wasn't even there until later. And so
Yep.
I still can experience that. And my kids, I look at, I say, y'all really don't realize how good you have it.
Yep.
There's a
Thank
TV
God.
in every room, and I just hope that I want to still give that discipline and those humble beginnings, because I know it also shapes the person that you are too,
Yes.
and not be ungrateful in times as you get older, or not be selfish or think you're entitled to certain things. So uh,
Yes. And
those
so
are
let me ask you this question. So now as a parent, and you are there active in a part of your son's life and your children's lives. So how does that, when you reflect on you thinking about whether or not if you were going to be able to be a good parent or not, when you look at it now, what is your thoughts? Do you think that you're doing a great job at this? I mean, we're never going to be perfect as
never
parents,
perfect, never
but
perfect.
what do you think about your parenting now?
So to be honest, not to toot my horn, not to toot toot, but I think you realize, and I'm grateful that now me and my wife we kind of I have somebody that's my better half,
Yes.
and so we have our children together. I know it don't always play like that in this
No.
world, but I'm grateful that me and my wife living together with for raising our three kids, two girls and a son.
Okay.
Um, but one of the things I think for me, because I wanted that father there so much, I know what it feels like to not have that person there. It wasn't about the money, it wasn't about the gift. One thing that I realized earlier, I said, I just wanted my dad when when the things he was struggling with and the lies and I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna come get you, and it didn't happen. I said, look, you don't have to give me no gift. I don't want to hear that. I don't have no money. That's why I ain't come around. I didn't want you there. I realized that really the kid is not going to remember every gift. I asked him today, what did I get you last? You're not going to. You might remember one gift, if that. But what you will remember is that you're
Yeah.
there. They will remember
Yes.
how I made them feel, and so they
Yeah.
can't. Somebody can't come up and tell them, "Oh, your dad's not there," or "Your dad doesn't love you." Um, these are things that I know that what they will remember is how you made. What you will remember, I think, in general, how you make someone feel, how
Yeah.
someone made you feel, whether good or bad. They're gonna leave a mark. They're gonna leave a good taste in your mouth or a bad taste, depending on how you made them feel. And so when I became a father, I was like, hey, I could either be like the father that I had, or option B would be the father that I didn't have. And
Yeah.
option B sounds so much better because I get to create this character. I
Yes.
get to I get to be the person. All the things that I wish my father was able to do, I get to be this person. So, not saying that I get everything right, but I think with that intention, that my intention is good to try to be the person that I didn't have, who I wanted as a father. And
Yeah.
so, and I think that's what helps. That I do get the little, letters, Father's Day. These are things like, I love you, Dad, and I have the best dad. My dad is cool, and I guess being an author, going to these schools right now, I'm still
Yeah.
cool. I'm still cool
Yeah.
right now. I know it's going to change. It's going to get those moments where it's like, what, get out of my face. But right
Yeah.
now, I'm still my son. I'm still the hero, and so those are things that I yearn for. Walk into the door, they're still excited. Hey,
Yeah.
Dad! They want to tell me about their day. They always my girls. Every time they get their hair, they know that I'm like, ooh. So they walk around slowly past me, and so those are things that they. I know my opinion matters. I know what I say. My voice matters to them, and so I feel like that's to me is what I need. I don't need nobody else to tell me anything. As long as they okay.
Yeah, and that's good. And as a parent, we don't have a handbook. We don't have a handbook
No,
to, you know what
no,
I'm saying?
no.
Everything is going to be trial and error. It's
That's
going to
it.
be
That's
trial and
it.
error. So,
And be
and
a student.
it's
A
yes,
student to the
most
game of
definitely.
parenting, right? Always willing
Yes,
to learn. I'm not afraid to my daughter's doing something I don't understand. Let me Google. Like what are the parents are saying out there? Like now we got the phone, we got the world in our hands. Like
yes,
I'm okay with if I don't know something, let me try to at least get different opinions, perspective. And we have the word too. Like don't let me get me
yes,
wrong. I truly as a Christian, um, I think about the forgiveness, that God gives us, even though we make mistakes every day and that unconditional love, that forgiveness. And so that helps me be, I think, a better father or a better husband, even to my family, that first ministry.
yes, yes, most definitely, most definitely. Now, what age group is your book targeted?
So I would say elementary school, even from zero until about, I think, like fourth grade, really. More so, I think too, even though I think is like easy read for like elementary, but I think it's also a deeper message. I think with a lot of books too, even as a parent, is develop that conversation starters, right, between a parent and the
Yes,
child. And so as a parent is even reading a book or guiding the child along while they're reading it, they're also going to gain some insight. I think one of my excerpts out of A Father's Message says, be proud when you look in the mirror, stand tall when you walk out the door, others will watch, so carry integrity each time your feet touch the floor. And so a kid sometimes initially may not understand what integrity means. And so that can be those conversation starters. Like integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is around. And so when I go to like the school readings, I'll always share with the kids. I said it's easy to do the right thing when your parents in the room or the teachers in the classroom. But
yes,
what will you do when they leave? What will you do when no one's watching? And so walking it with integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is around. That's a father's message.
right.
So
Well, let's see the book cover. I know you got one sitting there, and
yeah,
you just
I gotta
show,
have it. I got
show it to them.
So this is a father's
Yes,
message. And so with that page right there is actually kind of gives uh sorry. Uh,
yes. There
I'm
you go,
trying to
right
get
there.
it right. Trying to get it right.
Yeah,
But that shows
that
him
is
looking in
really
the
nice.
mirror, right?
Yeah,
And so
love him
be proud when
with
you
the
look in the
tie,
mirror.
put this tie on, and
Yeah,
just
yeah, right. And so
yeah,
it's just that gives a sense of like confidence. And
yes,
so like, as one of those things I picture is like, I guess you look good, you feel good. And so you walk around maybe with your head held high. And so through both stories, you it shows an infant into like a young preteen and throughout
yes,
the story because it gives an example of life. And so every day we wake up, we grow, we're growing. Whether we like it or not, we're going to get older as the day goes, right? Every
yes,
sun rises, you're going to get older. And so I wanted to show the evolution just of life, and with life comes experience, with experiences comes wisdom, life lessons. And so that's the strategy or strategically why I made sure as an infant seeing a child grow. And
right.
so
Yeah, and that makes sense because now it's again you're telling your backstory,
my
and
backstory,
that you
yeah,
can be able to, you reflect on your past and now look at the future that you're raising.
yeah,
That you can be able to see all the things, like you said, all the things that you wanted. Now you're doing it for your own children so that they know as they
yeah,
get older, especially for your son, when he gets older, you know what I'm saying? He has that male figure in his life,
hmm,
and he's always going to have somebody that's going to be there that's going to show up for him no matter what. So that's the most important thing, that
yeah,
we can be able to show our kids is that even through the rocky roads and even when they're not at their best, that we as parents are going to still show up for them. So,
absolutely. I
so
think
that's
the overall picture message too is like to let a child know, for one, they're not alone, but also let them know that this situation may start one way, but it
yeah,
doesn't happen in that way. And so instead of letting it define your situation, oh well, because I'm in a single parent home, because I'm black, because I'm in an urban community, I'm already set up to fail, right? Why
right,
try? But instead of letting your situation define you, let it refine you. Give it the fuel to keep going. And so when I realized, like, you know what, I'm not that statistic.
yeah,
I could, you don't have to let that define you. And so I want other kids to not already consider themselves a failure before they even start or explore life. They already gave themselves up without even trying. And so you can, even in the heart of the violence, everything, like you just is important, but also too for the parents to understand that it starts in home. It starts in the home. You know
Yes.
what I mean? You sometimes you can't control, and I know we can't control what happens outside of the door, but what we can control, be the best at that, right? And what you
Yes.
can control is inside the home. The best example is to be the example. And so I'm true on again. Um, Instead of talking to them until I'm blue in the face, show them. I
Yes.
can tell them, show them what you want them to do. So
Yeah. And that's important. That, being that example, being that
yeah, yeah.
example. Now tell me a little bit more. So as you were on this writing journey,
Hmm.
how first of all, how did you find your illustrator? Was it somebody that you knew? Did you, just go through what most of the people are going through now, and just kind of shuffling through trying to find somebody to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
that illustrator for them?
So the whole fiber, right? That's what everybody, that's where
Fiverr
you
and everything else.
everything else. And that is a challenge. And I would say unfortunate. And I think don't just settle for anything, right?
Yes.
You will know what's going to stick out to you. You're going to know what fits. And so back in 2012, I didn't know any other illustrators. And so this is just me being this message was so important in how I needed to get it out, because I wanted, if I can save any child or just one, that I had to get it out for them to be saved. Right. And
Right.
so, um, so I started out, well, it's KDP now. A lot of people here with self-publishing, KDP,
Yeah.
Kindle Direct Publishing, but before KDP, it was actually called Create
Creative
Space.
space. Yeah.
Yep. And so I guess they probably realized that we don't got to do all the other programs that they had involved. They had illustrators, they had editing, they had different packages. And
Hmm.
when it first started, and so when they had different illustrators, you had it kind of like Fiverr. You had to sort through what illustrators that you kind of that fit you, and it was one on there. Her name was Lorena. She's from, I think, Spain actually.
Hmm.
Who they had working with, and her artwork really stuck out to me. And so at that point, that's a whole nother, for other authors, aspiring authors, that's a whole nother part.
Yeah.
You had to be descriptive as far as what you want your illustrations to be. So that's a whole nother page. Each illustration was like a page and a half to make sure they understood my vision. And so, for
Right.
example, um, even throughout, they had to be the same character, but show them growing. I
Yes.
had to make sure that that was just a page in itself to explain that. Or I wanted to a baby in the crib, for example, on in the cover. As you go through the page, you will see that, but you can
Mhm.
see a silhouette is a light. That was
Yeah.
important that I wrote in my description, and that's not even a message in itself, but to show that all this time you are not alone.
Right.
And so that's where the light. And so you see the baby all the times I always look at when you see babies, they're smiling, right? And so I'm like, you hear like, there's an angel that's watching over them, or they see things that we don't see. And so it's one of those things where I truly feel like, we have those guardian angels that's watching over, protecting us. And so that is giving that biblical or spiritual sense. So did I answer your question? I think I went on the deep end.
So I think, so in other words, you found your illustrator,
Illustrated Crusades. There we go. Yeah.
which is that's actually really because by the time I got onto the scene of getting ready to self-publish myself, I heard of Creative Space, but as you said, became KDP, but I didn't
Yeah.
know they had all those services
Yep.
back then. So which is
And they
interesting.
probably realized cutting costs, like,
Yeah.
it makes sense. Well, why we don't have to work, because I guess if there was more clapback or more arguments, or, well, I don't like this person, I can't reach this person,
Right.
and then they're not working with them anymore, then what do you do? And so let's go
Right.
ahead and remove that piece, and now just do distributors.
Hmm.
And I think it's easier, and they're still making money. And so I guess from a business standpoint, I get it, but it takes the less pressure off of them to now
Yeah.
have to be in the middleman to
Yeah.
establish, because they didn't really. Then unfortunate for the second one, I reached out to him and said, "Hey, do you have that illustrator's email?" Because I did it so many years later, and they did. But now I'm at the same situation that everybody else in, because Illustrator, it was just a lot. I really wanted
Yeah.
to find somebody closer. It was a lot. The time frame, the time zone. It's challenging. And so this
Yeah.
person picked up more work, and they said they couldn't do the next one. So I said, okay, it's life. You gotta roll with the punches and say, you know what? It's
Yes.
maybe there's a bigger reason. Is God sees something that I don't see, and so I have to accept it. And I know what
Mhm.
I want, and I'm not going to settle for anything until I find that next
Good.
illustrator who can be able to deliver. And so, and that's what it is. Don't let the excitement for any authors or illustrators, don't let the excitement force you to put something out and
Right.
it's not what you want.
What you want.
Mm,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
what you want.
It's very important that your story is brought to light the way you envision it, you
Yeah,
know. So you most definitely have to find that one illustrator that you can really relate to, that's going to help you just make it, when you look at it, you just going to be like, wow.
yeah, yeah.
Like, wow. So that is great. That is really good. Now, as you were writing, your stories, where were your hiccups along the way? What do you feel like were your challenges as you were, outside of illustration,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
through just the writing process? What hiccups did you have along the way?
So one of the things, I wasn't an English major, so so one of those things is like, all right, I wanted to make my first one, and you can see the growth from my first book to my second one. I definitely think I have, like, I guess a close family member as well who's very good in like editing and things like that. And it has to be people that's close, who,
Yes,
the scare of you sharing your information. Do you lose it? You're not. You don't want to. You know, you don't want to lose it. You don't want to do something that now somebody stole your stuff, right? And so you
right.
got to be careful, making sure the contract and things are right, and giving it, sending your information off to any and everybody. And so
Yes,
I'm fortunate to really have like kind of like a close circle as far as like family who you can trust, that I was able to get someone to just make sure that the tense was right, making sure that it was good. And for the most part, I wasn't too far off. Like I college graduate, but I just wanted to make sure those little things, because I didn't want to just put anything out. I think you
yes,
a good steward of, you see other books, and sometimes like, man, I just wish that maybe they had just a little bit of guidance, could have tweaked certain things, or somebody could have been constructive criticism to be able to
yes,
just make it so much better. But because you don't have someone to go to, but that was my hiccup. I think really just making sure that the editing, because I know I wasn't the best, and like I knew English, but I knew I just wanted to make sure that I put my best foot forward, I put the best product out there, and just making sure how to get the right, I guess the right advice or the right help. And so
yeah,
like editing, that was one thing. Um, the second thing was just the first book was the message. I knew that me telling my story is
yes,
also going to expose some pain. And
yes,
so I knew that now people may ask me or may remember how I felt. And that sometimes at one point wasn't easy for me to talk about, or it was hard, but I realized that the message had to be more important than how I felt. And that's what makes it easier for me to share that story, because now, even in that, now look, because of that, I'm able to write a book. Because
yes,
of that trial, I now have a story to tell. So my pain turned into a blessing. And so
yes,
when I look at it from that angle, it's like, man, it's so much more rewarding to be able to now turn what considered to be a negative in my life into a positive. And so
yes,
that's what also I'm excited to be able to share that part. So
yeah.
that was
And
hard.
yeah, and a lot of times when we try to hide our pains,
Yeah,
those bad parts, are when we really need to kind of expose them, because we're going to help somebody.
yeah,
We don't know who we're going to help, but we're going to help somebody. And to be able to share it, I think, especially in this platform for
mhm,
children, because there's so many children that's dealing with those same pains, those
yeah,
same disappointments, and to know that they're not alone as you're sharing, with them, is It's something that they need to hear and something they need to know. They're not by themselves. It's somebody else has been through this and
Yeah.
somebody else is going through this. But here's your resource to let you know that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So,
And to representation, right? And
yes,
so now,
yes,
not only that they're not alone, but somebody who looks like them, they can identify themselves with and say, you know what, wow, okay, if he got through it, I can get through it. Or maybe, those now the messages in these books can help have them look at it from different angles or different point of views.
yes, yes. And so, leading right into that. So, what is your take on and why do you think that it's so important that we have diverse books for our children?
Oh well, I mean, representation. One of the things that I did share, representation. I think is power, and being able to see somebody who looks like you and telling you, um, guiding you and helping you is one thing. When somebody else is sharing a story that doesn't look like you, may say, all right, well, it doesn't mean it may go in the ear and out the other because you don't feel like it's directed to you personally, or
Right.
they may not understand your struggle. And so when somebody can say, I sat in the same seats that you sat in, and now, but you don't, you can be able to get through this, and this is how you can go about it. And matter of fact, I'm gonna come alongside with you to give you that push that you need and encourage you because I want to see you win. And so it's that smile when somebody can be able to uplift you. Also, too, I understand the power of words. Words can either build you up or it can destroy you, right? Words can make you feel good and or make you feel sad. And so when you can, I choose to use the words to uplift. I choose to use the words to inspire and motivate. And so I know that if it's power in it, I know that it is going to not just hit surface, but it can be able to now change their lives. This is something that can be able to change a whole course in their direction or the path
Mm,
they were once going to take. And because I was maybe obedient and disciplined to get the message across and knowing the power of representation, the power of words and literacy, um, it can I may not know what happens or who it may touch, but I know that what it can do and what the power comes from it, I cannot do it now. Once it's like it's a duty. It's like a duty. Like
yes.
I have to I have to just continue to share as much as I can and to that point, you know, our people, man, we're powerful. I mean, when you just
We
look
are.
at, man, we are creators, inventors. I just I don't want it to get lost. I want you, and if I'm a part, I may not know it, but my great grandkids, if I'm a part of that history, I think it's well worth it to spend my time and energy on putting something together, something of quality where it
Yeah.
can be the last days of time and you can be like, what, this book changed my life, this book changed my family, and the generations after that, that's one of those things where that's power.
Yes.
And
Most
so
definitely.
that's
Most definitely. And I think that's part of what we are all doing now, leaving a legacy
yeah, yeah,
through our stories, and so that it can be passed on for generations and generations to come,
yeah,
as they are reading this. Now, when they go to the library or the bookstore, they're going to see books that reflect them. Whereas, when we were growing
yeah,
up as children,
yeah.
we didn't see those books.
Mm-mm.
So now they have a variety of books from different walks of life, different shades of brown that they can be able to pick up and they can relate to. So yes, it's very powerful. Now, do you have any books in any genre that has inspired you? And if so, why?
So one of the books I do have I can show Tony Evans. I like Tony Evans. It was
Okay.
Kingdom Man, and
Yes.
so it's more so self-help books, inspirational. I'm also a deacon in my church, and so
Okay.
I I love things to help me be the best version of myself. It's one of those things that I enjoy doing in my children, from a easier way to digest in children books. But I read, I guess, on an older level, adult books to have that same concept. Find books that's going to be able to push me to be better, pushed me to challenge myself and take hold of whatever God has blessed me with, being a good steward of everything that I have. And so that's the same thing, same things that I carry with everything that I have on my plate. So I would say that, as far as right now, I like financial books as well.
Okay.
Financial books, Automatic Millionaire. I think that helped not focus on the things that I want, but focus on the handle on the things that I have and making the best of that. So
Yeah. Now, do you have, or does your kids have a favorite children's book outside of yours? Outside of yours, because I know that those are their favorites. But
ah,
any other children book that they are just so inspired by, or that they love to be able to read over and over again?
I would like to say Pete the Cat, even though I know Pete the Cat is by, I think, Dean something,
Is it
Caucasian guy.
Dean
Yeah,
Walters?
Dean, yeah, Dean. I think I wrote it down. I forgot. But it's Dean and then something, but
Yeah.
not African American. But that's one of the stories, and I do like reading those books to him,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of life lessons in it. I think Pete the Cat. I think wearing my white shoes, one of those things that you have to, sometimes you can't control what happens. And so
Yeah.
the shoes, throughout the story, the shoes was getting dirty, but he, kind of brushed it off. When things that you can't control, you go with life, you go with the flow and try to make the
Yes.
best out of the situation. So I think that sticks out to me. That's one of the books I had, like the whole collection of Pete the Cat. And so I read those books to them, as well. um, but 5 minute, I think that's great for parents too. The five
Yeah.
minute, like 5 minute Marvel books right now. That's what I'm reading with my son at night. That's it's easy for one. I don't fall asleep reading it, but it's a good 5 minute story, and for them to just kind of understand and be excited and read it, and it's not all day, it's not long. So
Yeah.
uh, I've been doing those 5 minute Marvel comic books, so I enjoy.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Now, and then I'll ask you, and kind of closing up here. And so, as you were on your publishing journey, what do you think, as you were writing, and from your first book to your second book, and now into your journey into your next book,
Mhm.
what along the way do you feel like that changed in your process, your thought process of you writing and publishing your books?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I think I'm still on a still on a well, I have learned, as far as, just through studying and through reading. Obviously, the more you know, the more you now can apply, right? And so never stop learning, right?
Right.
Just because you wrote a book, don't think that, all right, well, you're an author, you got it all figured out. I'm constantly learning as I'm reading new books. One of the things I always take in consideration, maybe like the New York best time sellers, right? And
Yes.
whatever reason, it could be their agent, it could be the reason that they get it out there. But take the time and read it and see what makes this book stand out. Can your book stand next to this book?
Right.
And so I'm always looking at new books, what's out, what's the number one seller, to kind of give me an idea. One of the things I have learned from the first one up into my most recent is just a sequence. I have like a sequence of the style, the rhythm, the flow. As you can put it on Word. One of the tips that I give to anyone: have the read aloud, have the computer read it to you, and ask yourself, does that make sense, right? As you're listening, are you okay with it, the way it sounds, like the pauses and the breaks?
Right.
But I think the sequence and the cadence of the flow. And I think just my writing style is kind of like a poetic style of rhythm. But that's kind of like how I'm writing. And then my second book is like a father's love. The same concept, but I learned so much more, I think, in the flow, in the sequence, in the cadence, that I have learned so far. And I'm still learning. And so
Yeah.
never stop learning.
Yes, most definitely. I agree. In this process, I don't care if it's your first book or your 30th book, there's always going to be some little nuances that you learn
Yeah.
that you didn't know before. So
Mhm.
always be willing and open to continuously to learn different things and
Mhm.
just stay abreast of things that's going on in the industry as well. So
Absolutely.
yes. Now tell the people how they can reach out to you, get copies of your book, how they can connect with you on social media.
No, absolutely. So those who are listening, again, my name is Gerald L. Jackson, your very own West Philly author. All my social media handles is on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook under West Philly author. Also, you can purchase my books, my most latest, the first and the latest, A Father's Message and a Father's Love, on my website at www.geraldljackson.com. Don't forget the L, geraldljackson.com. Also, I always want to push my website because you get a personal message. Now it is available on other platforms, but through the website you get to learn a little bit more about the author that other websites won't be able to share that with you. You can keep you up to date with the upcoming events, any vending opportunities, any school readings that I'm doing, and so that's it. Follow the website, subscribe so you can be kept keep up to date.
Yes.
No.
Actually, one other question in closing.
Okay.
Why is it so important that they go to your website so they can get that special autograph message from you?
You said why is it so important?
Yes.
I actually it helps is more better with the sales too. As far as you actually supporting the author, as far as for sales, and is more of a profit for the author. So you're actually supporting a black business, opposed to any other business. And so
Yes.
the other platforms I am using, as I said, to create space as distributors. To be honest, I don't want to have thousands of books in my home as far as inventory. That's really what I'm using that for. But the website allows you to be able to now get a personal message, get an autograph copy, which you never know. When that time when I blow up, you're going to be glad you have that autograph copy. So you want to get it now, before it's
Yes.
too late, before the supply and demand is too difficult to be able to manage. But that's a good position to be in. And so I'm claiming
Yes.
that's where I'm looking for. That's where I'm going. And I won't stop. I'm willing to put
Yes.
the work in. So,
That's
but
great.
again, thank you. Again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Gerald, for joining me this evening. It's been a pleasure just chatting with you. Guys, make sure that you head on over to Gerald's website. As he said, Gerald L. Jackson. Don't forget the
More.
L.com and
Yeah.
pick up your copy of all of his books. And read them to your children and let them know that they are loved, they're not alone, because we have so
Mm-hmm.
many children that's going through these same similar situations. And if you don't feel that your children need them, get them as a gift for somebody else. Again, Gerald, thank you so much. Everybody, it was a pleasure. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Ink and Chat. Until next time, let's continue to ink the world. Bye, everyone.
Love it. See
All
y'all.
right.